So welcome to this session called How to Ace Your G Suite Project. For those who were expecting how to bomb your G Suite project, if you're not, you're in the right room. It's the same session, just two sides of the same coin. Have any of you attended a fail conference in the past? A few hands rising. Okay, so for those who haven't, a fail conference is an event where entrepreneurs come and share their biggest mistakes. It's a kind of group therapy to make sure that people get comfortable with the fact that you never get a straight career path, you never get a straight development path for your company, and iterating, testing, learning is part of the process. So today we're going to be inspired by this approach, and we'll use role play to illustrate some of the common misconceptions and mistakes that can be done during a G Suite project, and actually any transformational project that you may have. And for this, I will have my colleagues Travis and Kaitlin come on stage and do the role plays. And after each role play, we will try to deconstruct what happened, and I will try to answer two questions. The first is, what will happen if you continue down that path? And by you, I mean the project team altogether. It's not only you individually. And the second question I will try to answer is, okay, so what should you do instead? I'm Claire Howlett, Cloud Program Manager for Google Cloud. I'm part of professional services based in Paris. And I'm a recent fan of soccer/football since my home country, France, won the World Championship. And I will let my colleagues, Travis and Kaitlin, introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'll try to project. I'll have a microphone in a minute here. But Kaitlin Reimann, I'm one of our change leads here for Google Cloud in the Americas. And it's a pleasure to be with you. As a former entrepreneur, we were laughing here this morning. I, at one point, have held the title of Chief Mistake Officer, so it's a privilege to be with you talking about the greatest G Suite fails this morning.
And hi, happy to be here, Travis Haler. I'm the other change management lead for North America at Google. And I've done a lot of projects. I've worked in consulting, I've worked for companies, and now for Google. So lots of experience and lots of failure. So hopefully we can share that with you, and you can not repeat our mistakes. So thanks for being here, and it's a pleasure.
All right, so before we jump in the role play, I would like to make one key assumption here. We're not putting lipstick on a pig. What does that mean? The solution you're about to roll out should be sound, in the sense that it should represent an improvement to the current situation. Let me give you examples of what bad looks like. Bad could be you're adding layers and layers of security on top of G Suite, making authentication or even sending an email very difficult. It's okay to do this for a restricted subset of a population, so typically VIPs, for specific emails that are high stakes, highly confidential, but it's not okay to do it for your whole population 100% of the time. Another example of what bad looks like could be very poor network connectivity, resulting in the Drive experience or even the new Gmail interface taking a lot of time to load. Last example can be PCs dating from the Middle Age with crippled amounts of memories. I hear a few laughs. So in all these cases, G Suite is not the root cause. But in the end, the overall user experience is deceptive. And if you're trying to fix this by adding a layer, by sugarcoating with change management, you're actually going to make the experience worse. Because people, no matter how much makeup, no matter how much lipstick you put on a pig, still recognize that it's a pig. And they will think that you're either making fun of them or you are not acknowledging the pain they are going through. So it will create even more distrust, anger, anxiety about the change. Okay? So what should you do if you are in a situation like this? You're not confident about the solution you're about to roll out. It's okay to pause a project. I've done it twice. So gather a group of key users, listen to their feedback, and try to assess how many of them are likely to switch to the solution as is. If more than the majority will not switch, build the case, go to your executive sponsors, and make it very clear that you're going to hit a wall. As I said, I've done it twice. Pausing a project, we took 3 months to completely rework the end solution, and all the examples I provided are examples from my experience. And then you can start afresh. And it creates a much better experience for your users because they understand that you took a user-centric approach. All right, so with this in mind, let's jump into the planning workshop. I heard that Travis, who's an IT director at bomb.com, a company supposedly embarking on a transformation journey, will be meeting with Kaitlin, who's a change manager at Success Consulting. So let's sneak in and see what's going on.
Travis, welcome to today's planning workshop. This is an exciting start to our transformational journey with G Suite. I'm excited to be with you, and I sent out the agenda in advance, and I hope you had a chance to take a look at that.
I did, thanks. We're really looking forward to working with Succeed Consulting. You know, I'd have to leave a little early, so I know we were supposed to have about 3 hours. I can do about 1. So let's do technology first, and that's the most important thing. So let's make sure we touch on that.
Okay, we're happy to adjust the agenda, but one of the things I did want to call out is that when we were doing our interviews prior to selecting G Suite, other companies said that they focus 60 to 70% of their time on the people and process part of the change, because that's actually where you add substantial value for the organization. So I think there's a real need for us to prioritize that within our working agenda.
I get it. But you know, what's most important for our organization is technology. We are IT, after all. And what works for others might not work for us.
I understand that. I guess we can table this discussion for now.
Great, thank you.
All right, so what happened here? Travis is very focused on technology. And as an IT director, it may not be surprising. If he comes from infrastructure, if his whole career was built on highly technical projects, chances are he was much more exposed to large Gantt charts and solving equations with multiple unknowns than managing key sponsors on the business side and being in contact with end users. So it may not even be part of his objectives to achieve a real transformation. His objectives may be just to roll out the tool, be done with it, and move on to the next project. So what should you do instead? Well, if you think like us, if you're convinced that G Suite really has the potential to change the way people work, I don't know if you've seen Prabakar's wonderful video during the keynote. Personally, I love it. It's really the illustration of how G Suite can reimagine the way people work. And even going beyond that, it's about changing the company culture. People can become more collaborative. People will change the way they interact with each other with G Suite. If you want to achieve this, you absolutely need the other 2 levers that are here shown on the chart. The people side, which is the behavioral aspect and the cultural aspect, and the process side, which is more the structural aspect of how people work. So how do you do this? How do you activate the other 2 levers if your sponsors are highly technical? My hint is ask them why the company initially chose G Suite. By doing this, you're shifting the conversation from what are his personal objectives to the collective reasons why executives chose G Suite. And by this, you're opening up to why HR chose G Suite, why comms chose G Suite, and why the CEO ultimately made this decision. chances are you will hear words like innovation, culture, collaboration, breaking down silos, agility. You can't do this only with a tool replacement. You have to activate the other two levers. Let me nail it down by taking the specific example of innovation. Where do you have your best ideas? In the park. In the shower. That's an example that usually comes. Okay, I'm not going, in the interest of time, I'm not going to take 20 minutes to go over all the ideas. Has any of you thought, in front of my mailbox? No, no one. No one innovates in front of their mailbox. So you can't achieve a truly transformational project just by rolling out a tool. All right, so now let's go further into the planning workshop and see what Kaitlin has prepared in terms of executive engagement.
Thanks for going through the stakeholder analysis. I think it's a really great start for us to inventory key stakeholders that we need to engage. We've identified what is their desired versus current commitment to the change. And I think our next step is actually to go through and inventory the C-suite and senior leadership.
Wait, Kaitlin, senior leadership? Do we really need to get that involved with this? I mean, I don't think we need to get our executives involved. They're busy, they have a lot of things to do, and this is just an infrastructure project. You know, this isn't with the board's priorities, so why would they care?
Well, experience has shown that we can't be successful without senior leadership being involved.
I really don't think it's worth our time to include them. Besides, if we involve them, they'll want to be involved in everything, and that could really jeopardize our timelines. We need to get this out.
Well, I don't think it's a bad thing to have their input. It could actually even potentially help us avoid pitfalls in the future and remove obstacles that we may encounter. And I think that, you know, again, it's really, really important to have them involved.
I think we can just agree to disagree on this one, Kaitlin.
Okay, let's come back to this at a later date.
All right. So, what happens if you persist down that path? No transformation has ever happened without the support and the drive from executives. You may have examples in mind of transformation programs that started from the field. But if you want to embed the change, if you want to have a lasting impact, you will need the support from executives. There are 3 roles that executives should play and sponsors should play. First is acquire resources, and by resources I mean people and budget. Second, create executive alignment. Executives have their own agenda, and it's the role of your sponsors, and I'm saying sponsors, I'll develop this idea afterwards, there's not only one sponsor, to create this alignment. Make sure that everybody will support your initiative and create will support a common messaging. And the last role is they should be active and visible. They should be walking the talk. They should be among the first to migrate as part of the early adopters phase so that they can showcase G Suite, typically among their board, but also to the wider organization. So typically holding events where you see them interacting based on forms, questions gathered through forums, using Hangouts, all the, integrating their changing behavior in the way they operate every day. Now, how should you go about that? How can you identify and engage executives? This is where the sponsor heat map or stakeholder analysis, whatever you call it, comes in. So here, you identify the people you need to be on board. It's not the full org chart. It's only the key stakeholders that you want in. So of course, you draw the relationships of who reports to whom, and then you call a code. Green is the person is aware of the program, supports it, and has enough influence, so has the right behavior, has the right impact to make the project a success. Orange is either the person supports the change, but they don't have the right skills, they're not really influential, or you're not so sure about how they're going to support. There's something missing. Gray is you absolutely don't know where they stand, and the red should be a warning, is they don't support the change, so either they're quite vocal about it, or they're trying to sabotage the project behind the scenes. Once you've done this, you can then build your influence strategy. So for each person that is not green, identify what are the actions needed. So do you need to have a one-on-one conversation? Do you need to go through someone else? Do you need to highlight how your project will contribute to their objectives? This is a key discussion that usually is missing with business executives, because executives on the lines of business don't necessarily see how G Suite will impact their bottom line. If they were not part of the initial decision process as part of pre-sales, they don't necessarily see the whole potential of G Suite. And this is why it's key to articulate how your project is going to help them achieve their goals. In this example that you see here, and it's, again, an example from past experience, when we drew this chart, the program manager realized that the VP of operations was absolutely unaware of the project. He had no contact whatsoever. You see him on the top right hand side. Turns out this person has 2/3 of the company reporting to him. So there was a complete black hole as to what will be the messaging, what will be the impact on this part of the organization. 2/3 of the company. So of course the first thing we did was build the action plan to get a meeting with him and get as many other executives sponsor the initiative and get the messaging right so that we get him on board. Okay, so planning workshop part 3, local champions.
So regarding champions, what approach did you have in mind?
What do you mean by champions?
You know, folks that'll be the face of the change, they'll help be a driving force within the different business units. We could call them ambassadors, change agents, Google guides, ninjas, or even superheroes.
No. There are no ninjas or superheroes in our organization. We don't want people running away with their own agendas, right? So let's keep this central and let's manage it from our location so that we can keep control.
But how will we manage this across, I think there's 40 different countries and 50 different business units that each have a different way of collaborating with each other?
I mean, we can just use Google Translate. I mean, you should know what Google Translate is, right?
Well, yes, but nothing replaces human interactions, and localization is more than just translation. In fact, we're trying to drive behavior change here.
Well, honestly, people have other things to do and won't be interested to get involved. So, there's such a time and money aspect of this. Like, we can't really afford this. Let's just use word of mouth. Everyone gets the emails, and they can just talk about it, and it won't cost us a thing.
All right, so what happens if you continue down that path, not willing to leverage local champions? Making a note because there are three points. First one, you're taking a high risk of rolling out a project that is completely disconnected from the field. Champions are a unique way to get the feedback from the forces who are down in the trenches about how they feel about the project, how they feel in the sense that, what is their overall feeling, how aware they are about the change, how they see the change as an impact on them, and how ready they feel for the change. And this is why you should regularly check in with these champions to see what the mood is. And if you think then a survey will do this just right, you're going to hit a wall. Because in surveys, people usually don't speak their mind. They will very rarely go on the extremes and say, I'm super happy, or I'm super anxious, especially the ones on the anxiety side. they will very unlikely open up in a survey and say, I feel for my job. I am afraid that this change, I will not be able to make it. And this is where a face-to-face interaction will be valuable, because the champions you're going to choose are the people who are trusted, people who have the connections, who other employees will come and talk to, who can confide in them. They are also the ones who are influential and can help reassure them, bring the right messaging back to them in a way that you as a central team are not able to achieve because you're lacking the proximity. Second risk you're taking if you're not leveraging champions is you're cutting yourself from very impactful resources. Typically, the kind of resources that will make a whole difference when you're going live on D-Day and who will have the appropriate targeted response, especially to those who are less agile with change. It makes a complete difference, not only in terms of impact at the end, but also in terms of experience throughout the transformation journey. And this is how you get a much higher employee satisfaction about the project if you engage local champions. Fourth risk of not leveraging champions is if you only rely on external resources, and we love our partners, we love the people who come for a targeted period of time because they have very strong expertise, except they're here for a limited period of time, which means you're not embedding the change if you're not leveraging local champions. Champions will be there and will be very involved during the project. But even if their amount of engagement diminishes afterwards, they will still be identified as the person to go to. So you're really embedding the change, and as you go afterwards to go to a real transformation to get people to change their behaviors, you can still leverage this network of champions. The fourth risk of not engaging local champions is it's actually much less fun. Travis mentioned superheroes. He doesn't want superheroes. Well, we do have pictures of men in lycras for a Gmail rollout. We have multicolored wigs. I even had, from one of my projects, I even had a champion write a song and get 20 people to sing along with him, and it's on YouTube. It's just not public. So what should you do then? Create a change network. This is what you see on the chart. Think of it as a tree, hence the tree on the right. Executive sponsors are the roots of your change network. They are the ones who will provide the messaging, who will set a clear direction, and who will articulate the change with regards to the company's objectives. Then you have your core project team. If you are a large organization, or even if you are local but at scale, you may want an additional layers of regional change leads who will do two things. First, they will help you scale, because as a central team, you can't manage everything. Second, they will help you adapt to local specificities. And sorry, Travis, it's not only about Google Translate. You need, in some cultures, the visuals that are designed by the central team, the messaging won't feel right. So you will need the help from people who are in the know, who know exactly how to adjust with it. And then you have the champions. So we also call them, guides, ambassadors, change agents. These people should play 4 roles. First, they should be a face of the change, but it's in a slightly different way than your sponsors are. The sponsors are the face, meaning the influential figure that the change is possible. The champions are there to be the local face, the go-to person when someone is in need. The second role that the champions will play is point their colleagues to the right trainings and resources around communication, everything they need to know about the change. They're not replacing you. They're just helping as to get things running smoothly. Fourth role I mentioned was the third role. Sorry, I mentioned was being. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Being there to. I'm losing something. Yeah, sorry. So being a role model, the same way that your sponsors are supposed to walk the talk, your champions are also going to walk the talk. They will be the ones who will be switching first to G Suite. And they will be the ones that you will empower to really reach a level of knowledge about the tool, but also what you can do with the tool. So they will be there to showcase the change in behavior and all the opportunities that are there to really change the way people work on a daily basis and re-engineer the business processes. This is how you can achieve transformation. Now, the roles that champions are not expected are champions are not supposed to provide level 1 support the same way that your help desk does. Your help desk is there for them. Champions also have a day job, don't forget it. Second, champions are not there to do training. I know that some companies consider leveraging champions for training. That's not a good idea, for two reasons. First is champions are not expected to be experts at G Suite. They will be key users. They will have, let's say, more skills than a regular users, but you can't expect them to know everything about G Suite. Second, they're not necessarily trainers. So I really encourage you to have dedicated training resources and then have the champions to point their peers towards the right resources. So they're more here to recognize when there's a gap in skill set, when there's a gap in awareness about the project, and point their colleagues to the right resources. All right, so last question. How much time should champions invest? So here I'm not going to give you a consultant answer, which is, well, it depends. The answer is quite prescriptive. It's 2 hours per week. Why is that so? Because it's the only answer that executives reluctant to the change will accept. And to be honest, champions, no matter what guideline you give them, will invest time according to the energy they have and to how much they believe in the change. What some managers may fear will result in a loss of productivity actually results in a gain of productivity for two reasons. First is engagement. If you're a champion, you feel that you've been chosen by your organization to drive a change. So you feel empowered. You feel that the company believes in you, and that gives you an additional boost. Second, since you're going to be trained on G Suite, and you will be walking the talk, you're actually going to gain productivity. You will be among the first to reimagine how you work and how your team works. So collectively for your manager, it will be, bottom line, it will be a huge benefit. So, moving on to the next role play, let's revisit the planning workshop and see how our friends are discussing around employee awareness and engagement.
So this is a really exciting conversation today. I would love to talk to you about how we get our executive sponsor involved. I think it'd be great to have her voice behind the change.
Great. I'm sure Maria, our CIO, would be happy to be involved and she'd be flattered. What kind of commitment are you looking for?
You know, to send emails from her mailbox, to have her be the face and voice of the change, and then maybe even to help us reduce resistance or overcome obstacles.
Do you really think that's necessary? I mean, people don't really have a choice. They're either going to adopt or not. It's a get on board or get out kind of mentality here.
Well, I did talk to the project manager, and they said that the last technology implementation that you did meet quite a bit of resistance. And he went on to elaborate that over the past 3 years, a lot of the technology initiatives have been cut short, which we know will impact an employee's mindset around this change. If we couple that with the fact that this is a high degree of impact to their day-to-day activities, I do think we're going to meet resistance.
Then why even try? Every time it's always the same thing. We give them a great solution, they complain about it, and like last time, people didn't want to waste their time with the change stuff. So they have stuff to do. They have a full-time job, they're busy, so we didn't, why do it?
So are you suggesting we just hope that people will adopt the new solution?
Yes, let's save ourselves the headache. Let's just do that.
All right, so let's apply a bit of logic here. Hoping that employees will not resist is the same as hoping that employees will embrace the change naturally. Does everybody agree with this? Now, who thinks this is realistic? Yeah, no one. Resistance is natural. Resistance will come, inevitably. And for this, let's look at the Moore's adoption curve. The people, so it says that the population spreads along this curve. So you get people on the far left who are innovators and early adopters, making up 15% of your population, who naturally embrace change. They are the ones who have the latest phone, who have fully automated their home, and who are driving an electric car. And I see a few smiles in the audience, so you've probably recognized yourself, or you're thinking of someone. These people, their personal worth is defined by how much in advance they are compared to the rest of the population. So you don't need to convince them. They are by design convinced. And chances are, when you come and talk to them, they will tell you, yeah, I've been piloting it with my personal email account. So I'm using it, I'm doing all the stuff already. They probably won't attend the trainings. They will figure out by themselves. And they're the ones who want to be on trusted testers, the early adopters programs. And they're actually good candidates for this, because they will test and stress your solution in all possible ways. And they're fine with failure. They know that being on the edge comes with a downside, which is sometimes things don't work, but that's fine for them. So they're good in Trusted Testers program. They're not necessarily good on your early adopters phase, or at least they shouldn't be the only ones on the early adopters phase. Why? Because these people are quite different from the rest of the population, hence the big scary chasm that you see on the curve. These people value novelty over stability, whereas, if my math is right, 85% of the remaining population value stability over novelty. So if you're trying to engage, to get the innovators and early adopters only these ones at the beginning, you will not get the real feedback from the rest of the population. By the way, these people are also probably not the right candidates for being champions, because they can't relate to the rest of the population. The right champions are the ones on the early majority, because these ones can relate, but they're still open to change. So, what should you do? Well, first, get your project team comfortable with the idea that resistance is natural. So the mindset should not be if resistance happens, but when resistance happens. And uses this as the paradigm will make you anticipate change and manage it. By anticipating, I mean two things. First is you should make it super clear in your communications why you're making the change, making it clear what the benefit to users will be. And we'll revisit this afterwards. Also, creating what I call the strong FAQ. which is a list of all the questions and objections that people will think of, will discuss at the coffee machine, but will never come and ask you directly. All the urban legends that will inevitably develop and that you cannot directly control, but you can influence through your champions network and through your executives. So this is why it's really critical that you go through the exercise of anticipating what will the questions be. And by questions, it's not so much, will this feature be available? Will I be able to do this and that? It's much more profound. It's about, why are we doing this change? What impact will it have on my day-to-day job? It may even touch on, will I be able to make the shift? For people who've been comfortable using these tools for a long time, they may see this change as a real challenge to them. They may not be confident that they will make it. So this is why you need to anticipate questions and be very clear typically in terms of what resources will be available, what training will be available, and highlighting the fact that there's a champion network there to help them. And of course, the last point is you should manage resistance or reluctance, however you call it. Managing it means being connected with your champions network to get the feedback, using surveys as well, because even though it doesn't give you the exact picture, it allows you to monitor from one survey to the next the trend. And that's the important benefit of having regular surveys. By managing it, I also mean your strong FAQ should not be written once at the beginning and then you're done, it's frozen in time. It has something that needs to evolve and that really develops as you get feedback along the project. And sometimes difficulties arise and you need to integrate them in the strong FAQ as well. Whether you publish the strong FAQ or you keep it open to yourself and you address it through champions is up to you. It really depends on your company context. Okay, moving on to a more subtle discussion about migration versus transformation.
Hey, Travis, good afternoon. Our team actually created a robust change plan to help address the degree of impact that's entering into the organization, and we wanted to get your feedback on it and consent to move forward.
Okay, just for context, it's been really hard to get the appropriate resourcing for change at our company. It isn't a skill set that we have within the organization, and we struggle to get the dollars required to actually staff it.
We understand that resources are tight, but let's take you through the plan, and then we can determine how to move forward.
Okay, let's get started.
We believe there needs to be an equal focus on driving what we call tactical change, which is actually a focus on the tools themselves, as well as behavior change, which would focus on more of how are we helping employees understand how the tools make them better, stronger, and faster. We think that we can do this through a blend of sponsorship and organizational analysis and training and communications. And we even think that it may be important to do a formal marketing campaign.
I'm going to stop you right there. Change management is a tool that we use to address tactical change. That's it. I appreciate all the effort, but as I said in the beginning, we really don't have the money for more than that. So, if we go to the boardroom and ask for a marketing campaign, we might as well just pack our bags. They're going to laugh us right out the door.
Well, I understand that, but if we really want to create value for the organization, which I know you've talked about a lot, the research shows us that we do have to have a plan that focuses on the tactical and behavioral change, and the marketing piece can be a key element of that. For instance, we really need to help employees understand how this will increase productivity for them.
All right, can we talk about this later? I have to go to another meeting.
Okay, so that's a topic that is rarely discussed. Usually people think that the path that users and populations of users will follow for the transformation, so for changing their habits, for reimagining the way they work, will be the same as the migration path. And it's not. First reason is that A migration can be done overnight. For those who attended the keynote, Nielsen migrated all their employees over a weekend. Whereas the transformation takes time. Takes time because you need to embed the new behaviors. Also takes time because not everyone reacts the same towards change. So some people will be very fast at adopting new behaviors, whereas for others, it will take more time. So another reason, also another explanation, is that building your migration roadmap is about managing constraints, whereas building your transformation roadmap is about managing opportunities. So let me elaborate on that. When you're building your migration roadmap, so you're putting people in groups that work together, so making sure that, oh, we don't forget the assistant to this director, and we make sure that all these people who are in the same department migrate on the same weekend. Oh, and also, there's a network upgrade coming up in 6 weeks, so we can't migrate these people on this site right now. We have to wait until there's enough available bandwidth. All this is about managing constraints. Whereas if you're working on the transformation, it's about reinventing how people work. So it's about identifying opportunities for them to develop more innovation, more collaboration. And it will only happen if people recognize these opportunities and are open to the change. So you see, it's a completely different setup. So how should you go about it? How can you build your transformation roadmap? What I recommend is leveraging transformation labs. Anyone familiar with the concept of transformation labs? Okay, a few hands. So transformation labs are workshops usually delivered over half a day that will help identify business challenges, then define solutions that will address these challenges, prototype, and build a roadmap, so an action plan for each of these challenges on how we're going to implement the solution starting tomorrow, 9 a.m. These transformation labs build this as well. They will, for each solution that is identified, they will position them towards two axes. The first is the ability to execute and the business impact. By ability to execute, I mean factors such as technical complexity, process, governance constraints, and even politics. Business impact is the combination of how much impact you're bringing to a given individual times the number of people impacted in your company. And the roadmap is built like this. You start with the first steps. So something easy to implement, probably with a low business impact, but at least it's safe to fail, it's safe to learn there. Once you've built a bit of experience with these first steps at reimagining some processes, at identifying new opportunities for people to work together, you can move on to first successes. So it's the upper left quadrant. This one, I recommend you spend a bit of time there, because this is where you're building the success that will help you get traction from sponsors, because this is where you will showcase that it is possible that G Suite not only is a tool rollout, but it really changes the way people work. And this is why I call it success, because you can gather these success stories, you can build a marketing campaign, you can actually build the transformation gallery. So we have a public website called Transform with Google. Type Transformation Gallery G Suite in your favorite search engine, and you will find it. This is where you can really demonstrate the business impact of G Suite. And this quadrant is still feasible with your area of influence, with the budget, within the constraints that you've been given at the beginning. It will help you engage business executives, because the moment they understand, they see that there's one use case in their department that works, they will be much more open to investing in your project. So it will open up additional resources, additional budget, additional visibility at executive level. And this is where you can really then move on to the last quadrant, which is the business transformation, which is when the change in culture, the change in mindset happens. So typically having people completely review the way they see traveling by using Hangouts, by really embedding Hangouts in their day-to-day habits.
Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah.
It was great.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Yes.